So, welcome everyone who is watching and tuning in for our fourth episode of LinkedIn Live Lessons. I am joined. I just had a feedback there. Sorry. So I'm joined now by someone who I'm proud to say is a friend of mine, a good role model in the community, a leadership guru, many other qualities. But he'll be introducing himself very shortly. But Chris, immediately thanks for jumping on and for joining us for the fourth episode of this series. So, as a quick reminder of what we're going to be covering today. And the general scope. We've got a few questions for Chris. He's going to be weighing in with his valuable insights, some actionable advice for everyone to put into play, and then we're going to jump into a quick Q&A. Without further ado, Chris, if you just want to give yourself a little intro, that'd be fantastic.
Thank you, mate. Very, very kind and warm welcome. Thank you very much. Thanks very much for hosting me and having me on as well. Very much appreciated. I'd just like to set the tone of saying I am no expert in anything to the group. I am a lad cuffing every single day as he goes on, doing a little bit of good and trying to help people on the way. My name's Chris Shaw. I spent 14 years in the Royal Marines. I left 2 years ago because I wanted to be a present dad and a present husband. The military can give you many, many good things, but time at home is not one of those natural things that comes hand in hand. Whilst leaving, I thought there was a gap in information, being able to access the right information for people to make better decisions for themselves. And I thought, what am I going to do about it? So I went and tried to do something about it, which we'll probably come on to. I'm a huge champion of trying to spread positive narrative, especially in the kind of successful veteran space. And in that process, I set up the network, which I'm wearing my school uniform today, and I might have some other merchandise kicking about.
Get it plugged.
That is me, mate.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks. Like, I'm sure a very humble but not surprising introduction from Chris there, who's doing and done some great things, and absolutely a mind of wisdom that we're going to try and dive into now in some specific areas. All of this, is so relevant for people regardless of your stage, and don't think that just because we're, in that position of military and ex-military that this isn't so applicable for anyone in a professional career. A massive part of what we're trying to champion here is leadership at all levels, and really how to excel as you're moving throughout your career and even to the further stages, the middle stages, not just that initial part. So but speaking of the initial part, the first question that we've got for you, and I'm really excited to see what you've got to say about this, is how did you find purpose after serving?
It's a great question. One that I've thought about considerably since leaving as well. And there's from my personal story, there's a few things that have really kind of hit the nail on the head of why I've wanted to be successful after leaving the service. And what I say there is quite important of why I want to be successful. Some people leave the military, they don't want to be successful. They just want to do a job and they just want to have an easy life, see out their time. Some are very aspirational. Myself, I personally wanted to see what I could achieve in this world. Genuinely, one of my mates said, imagine what you're going to achieve with the energy and the passion that you've got. And that's resonated with me since. But I'm a very observant person. And I watch, I listen, and I absorb everything as much as I can. In my resettlement on LinkedIn, which is an amazing free resource and a tool, I was seeing people struggle with purpose and identity. And I was like, right, that's an issue for a lot of people. How am I going to mitigate that, and what am I going to do? I'm known as the Gen Dit guy now. I honestly was at a play park the other day, and some guy came up to me and was like, you're a Gen Dit guy. So I've kind of made my own purpose and identity. And it was purely for the fact of I wanted to help other people find the information that I'd already worked really hard to find. And I thought, why is there not just like a simple one-stop shop room that everyone can share ideas? Like I've not reinvented the wheel. I've just put all the wheels in one room. So that was a huge factor for me. I observed others' struggles and I said, that's not going to be me. How am I going to sort it? I'm going to create a new identity. And I'd done that by finding my own purpose. And throughout my military career, I was always like a community lead, a hub, a go-to person. And I was in my troop in the Marines, I was always that person that junior people would come to me and say, Chris, I've got this issue, or I need to learn this, or can you help me with my presentation? Because they knew I was super approachable, they knew I was knowledgeable, and they knew that I would help them. They wouldn't go to other people because they would probably be turned away or told to go and find someone else. But they all would always come to me, and that made me feel really kind of warm. It's always been a passion to me. So I thought I need to take that from service and do it somewhere after service. Even little things like in my gym, I'm competing for a high fitness event, and I made up a high group, and I've motivated 40 people in the gym, and I've taught them how to do the technique work. I love that piece, and it's all about community for me. Yeah. Is a big one. Have you got anything to add on that?
Yeah, I just find it's really interesting, and we've spoke about this extensively, throughout our chats that have gone on for a couple of years now, and that idea of contribution to development and growth, and how fundamental that is to, I guess, personal fulfillment. And it's quite a daunting aspect to find that in outer domains, places outside of the military. And that always baffles me a little bit with it, and something that I've experienced, and I don't know if this is the same for you, but that I've never been the person who's wanted to be in these positions. I just feel like I've found myself in them sometimes. And I don't know why that is. It just seems to be a little bit of the nature of it.
Yeah. I mean, if you'd asked me 2.5 years ago, would you expect yourself to have done this, this, and this? No, I would not have. My next point is autonomy. When I was a corporal in the Royal Marines, I was put in a box and I was told, Chris, this is your job, stay in your box. And since I've left the Marines, I have had the autonomy to do whatever comes in my head, I go and do. And what I've done over the last 2 years, there is success to it. So it kind of shows that I do have some good vision. I've got some great leadership skills, and it's been purely of the fact that I'm now free to say, what are my strengths? I'm going to excel in them. What is my capacity? And I really push it to the limits. I've redlined over the last 2 years, but I wanted to know what my capacity was. And my vision as well. I've got a vision of how I want things to go. And obviously in the military, there is a chain of command, there is a line of authority, and it can get stopped at the next level up, and you can't do anything about it. And I understand in a professional context, I am limited, but I am now in a position in a professional workplace, and we'll come on to this in a bit, that I have got to an environment, an industry where that vision is welcomed. And obviously in my personal life, that vision with the Gen Dit and stuff is created and it's implemented by me. So yeah, autonomy is a huge one. Another one that I observed whilst in resettlement and leaving is camaraderie. It's obviously one of the first things that anyone says about the military is miss the lads. Obviously females as well, but it's normally miss the lads. When you leave the military, it is, do you miss anything? No, I don't miss anything apart from the lads or the banter. The team spirit. In the Marines, it was always me, kind of centre of the hub, rallying everyone together, motivating everyone, making people see the value of the mission. When they're dripping, they're moaning, they want a wets break, and I'm like, no, come on lads, like need to get this done. At Jacobs, my previous employer, I started a global fitness initiative, which had 2,000 people in it when I left. I had kind of the VetNet. So being that kind of, and then my gym as well, and then the Gen Dit. I like being the centre of a hub because of the camaraderie, the community, the relationships. That's what I love doing, and I was kind of find my purpose through that as well. And then the final one of how do you find your purpose after serving? I have just got this personal relentlessness. My wife just sits and just looks at me just like, can you just stop? And my purpose in life is I just want to do as much good as I can for as many people as I can. It all starts at home. Everything that I do is for my son and my wife. I've got a big plan. And then filtering down from that is helping the military community. But within that, there's some amazing civilians that contact me on a daily basis. And my first thing is, how can I help you? There's some people in the community that are like, what can you do for me? I'm the opposite. I'm like, what can I do for you?
I mean, so much in there, Chris, and I'm gonna put you on the spot here with a little bit, given what we've just spoke about, and it might be for some people who are watching this who feel
Hmm.
I don't have that. I don't feel like I've got that innate burning, that inside. I don't have this plan figured out. What would you advise for those people who are feeling a little bit like that, a little bit lost? What is a good first step to take to trying to figure that out? To start to create that path of purpose, and I guess a bit of belonging as well. Where
Yep.
where would you advise someone look to really make that first step?
This first one won't really help in the short term, but it takes time. Like you can't just fathom and think I'm going to do this and then it happens. It takes
Yeah.
time. The Gen Dit guy has iteratively became a thing over time. It
Mhm.
is still refining. I don't have a plan, mate. Well, I'm cuffing every single day. I have a vision, a plan, kind of. But my first biggest one is it just takes time. And two, talk to people.
Mhm.
The Gen Dit has came about from me having conversations with people and saying, Chris, I'd love to get involved with this. Chris, I'd love to
Mhm.
help you. You're doing great things. It's not me that comes up with most of these ideas. It's people coming to me and then I just glue it all together. How for others to find their identity, their purpose, their passion, that's up to them. But there are people that can help by having
Mhm.
conversations. So I didn't utilize them and I haven't yet because I have a bit of a vision, but I understand the benefit of having a coach, a mentor, a buddy, a soundboard. You know me, I love voice notes and I genuinely send voice notes on a day-to-day basis with ideas because I can verbalize in my head in 10 seconds what it takes me to type in 5 minutes and I've got a busy life. And I can send 5 people these ideas and I'll get feedback on them and that helps me refine. And you might not have an idea of a business or a Gen Dit thing, but if you want to be an operations manager in Dubai, that's a purpose, that's a vision. How are you going
Mhm.
to get out there and how are you going to best facilitate that is finding other people that can help you make that a possibility.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think I remember hearing something relatively recently that in order to ignite a passion, you need some form of knowledge about something first. You can't be passionate
Hmm.
about something you don't know about, so you need to give yourself exposure. And I think that's where speaking to people is really
Yep.
valuable when you're coming from a very closed off
Yep.
organization, the military, and there's so much out there. You've got to educate yourself. You've got to get some
Yeah.
exposure. It's not as easy. It would be amazing if everyone had this
Yep.
idea of like, this is what I want to do. I'm going to walk into it. First, it has never worked out like that for anyone. It never will. But I think the
Yep.
key part is just getting some exposure, educate
Yep.
yourself a little bit. You'll soon find something that tickles your pickle, right? It starts ticking your
Yeah.
boxes.
The other one to add on to that is self-reflection.
Mm-hmm.
I do a lot of self-reflection, and if you are in the military and you think back to if you could have done that better, what would you do differently? That kind of stuff. I always look back, and it's not so much that it's what did I like about that? What didn't I like about that? Okay, let's move away from the stuff that I don't like and let's
Mm-hmm.
move to the stuff that I do like. And I'll put that in actual metrics or like real life proof. I was in Jacobs, loved Jacobs as a company. The job role that I ended up into as a bid manager or proposal manager is in charge of the written documentation of bids to win work. I
Mm-hmm.
soon learned I am not a big fan of written documentation stuff. I don't want to read 40-page document, decipher it, put it into Excel spreadsheets, and then rewrite a 50-page document to hand back to a client. That's not what I want to do. What I did want to do was be beside the client and say, what's your pain problems? What are you
Mm-hmm.
doing? How can we solve it? And be more relationship building. And that's where I went from into a sales team, into a bid team, into a business development manager role with Mass. And I've moved back into defence because I've got thousands of defence contacts. I've got a really strong background, really strong reputation. And I thought, hang on, why am I not playing to my strengths here? And that's been my kind of iterative next step in my career.
Yeah. Yeah, really helpful. And I think that point of self-reflection is a big one. For anyone who's watching, if you've got any quick questions, feel free to ask them. But a really simple exercise that was a little bit of a game changer for me was, and it ties in with the voice notes actually, is verbalizing things. So I would sit there, and it's something I heard, and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to try it. And I would say, I'm excited about, and I would let my brain automatically sat on my own, just saying it out loud, figure out what those next sentences were. What I want to do is, what I don't like doing is, and there's something about actually verbalizing it that almost helps you fill in those blanks. So if anyone wants a quick takeaway point to try, maybe give that a whirl. And cool. So, Chris, moving on then. So I know the leadership is a huge aspect. You've recently done something really impressive. I'll leave that for you to get in there with I guess the announcement that I know you did one recently on LinkedIn. But something that I would like to dig into, and I know that a lot of people have asked about what they want to dive into from you, is your leadership style. What that was like and how that's actually changed throughout from being in the Marines at Jacobs and now at Mass. Have you noticed any differences? What are they? What are the benefits of that?
I think my leadership style from a very junior Marine, because it was lessons learned, and I came from the Herrick era where it was very, very, I'm going to call it out, very, very shouty, do what I say. If you don't, I'm going to wrap you around the head. And that's what I learned as a young Marine. But then I've always had quite a mature mind on me. And as I started maturing, I was like, hang on a second. I didn't want to do anything for that person because of the way that they treated me. I don't want to be the guy that people don't do things for. I was like, if I want to go up in the chain, I need to get people on side to start doing things that I need them to do. And that's when I kind of started adjusting my leadership. That's when I can remember adjusting my leadership style. And I've kind of kept it since then of what kind of leader do I not want to be? What kind of leader do I want to be? And since leaving, obviously, as I said, as a rank in the military, you're kind of put in that box of here's the type of leadership you need to deliver. And I was like, I can deliver leadership however I want as a civilian because it's all situation dependent. And yes, the military, there'll be some people that aren't liking what an Agile in the military as well, but there are parameters. And I was there to develop my own style. And one of I actually use it. This is a top tip for everybody. They can steal this one. In my interview processes, if they talk about leadership style or have you ever dealt with a difficult peer? There was another corporal who had a very different leadership style to me. He was very shouty, do as I say. We were out in Norway. We needed to clean the vehicles, get all the snow off them for 8:30. And he went out. None of the lads had done what they were tasked to do. He went in, started screaming at them, shouting at them, throwing things at them, came back out, cursing and blinding, and I was like, they're not going to do anything about that. So 15 minutes went by, I got all my kit on, I went and got a shovel, I stood at their doors and I went, lads, do you understand why we need to do what we're doing? Do you understand the ramifications if we don't do what we're going to do? I'm going to go outside, I'll see you outside. And I started doing it, and then 5 minutes later, they all had their kit on, and they all started coming out, and they all started cleaning it. And there's just a different way of leading, I think. And then in preparation for leaving Marines, I was like, hang on a second. Again, back to the self-reflecting. I am in a male-orientated, pretty much male-only environment, and I will be working with a lot of females. And my wife is a group head HR manager, and I took a lot from her. I took so much learning on empathy and EQ, and you don't always have to do things in a certain way. So I kind of made my leadership agile to the environment and the situation, which a lot of people do, but I don't think true empathy comes naturally to a lot of people, and it's one thing that I've really worked on over the last couple of years as well.
Yeah, it absolutely a superpower. I think we were talking recently about how facilitation is a superpower, but I think enablement is one. Leadership is a huge part of that, and it comes down to these classic sayings of, are you a boss or are you a leader? Because they're different things. Being told to do something or someone who can pave the way, help you understand, like you said, that enablement is crucial for excellence and high level performance. I think there's an element of this where that empathy that it boils down to is how you get the most out of people. And I think it's a Jocko Willink thing, which I saw him say about leadership, where a really good leader, actually, they're not really leading the team. They make every individual within it their own leader. And that's when you get kind of like these superhuman abilities. And I think that all ties into it. But
So,
super fascinating. I
well,
think
sorry, mate, on you go.
the last one I wanted to touch on is just this idea around you can get more bees with honey than vinegar. Like going out and treating people like a bit of a dick doesn't tend to work, and it's amazing how often people try.
That touches on my next point, mate, quite nicely. And being a genuine and nice person, I put this in my leadership post a couple of weeks ago, and I said, being a nice person is the most underutilized tool in the professional toolbox. Honestly, see, just being a genuine and nice person goes so far, and that is giving people the time, the respect, listening to them, actually actioning stuff that they ask for. And it's not a hard thing to do. Some people don't do it, but if they did, their lives would become so much better because good karma comes around. And if you just treat people like normal human beings, it can have really good impact.
Yeah, absolutely. It's it's one that's, I guess, blown my mind a little bit when I've seen these different approaches in the past. But I mean, we talk about leadership. You're obviously in a pretty good place to talk about that and advise on it. Something relatively big recently, if you want to maybe touch on that one.
Yeah, I mean, I am, as you touched on, I'm very humble in this position because I'm not an exec leader, I'm not a senior leader, I was not a high up officer, but I am a champion for you do not have to be at that level to have great leadership skills. I believe in action is better than talking or policy. I think that just doing good things is great leadership. So in amongst many other side projects and extracurricular activities that I've got going on, I submitted my application to become a fellow of the Institute of Leadership, and I was successful. I actually was the first person to submit a video evidence to the board as well. So in true Chris Shaw fashion, I went, right, how am I going to be a little bit different here? Which went down quite well. And I had a message from the CEO because I mentioned the Institute of Leadership because I try not to sound arrogant here, but this week I was also nominated for 2 Scottish Veterans Awards, so Leader of the Year and Veterans Group of the Year for the Gen Dit. So I'm doing something right. I don't know what it is. I mean, I'm a bit of a gobshite. I just talk about my experience and try and help people, and good things happen. So.
Yeah, I mean, there's that the classic thing where we see a lot of people from this background, the humble nature, but I mean, just a massive well done. I think it's noted. I think it's well deserved. There's a lot of comments right now from everyone in the group. Loads of familiar faces, and Zoe, Rachel, Laura, Mick, everyone popping off and saying hi, but who all recognise a lot of these contributions. So fantastic! It's really epic stuff. And so now, mate, if we just move away from this leadership style, another key part of this, what we spoke about is growth. So to put it short and simply, to you, what is growth? What does it mean? What does it look like?
Firstly, hi everybody. Thanks very much for tuning in and leaving a comment. And yeah, so I mean, growth isn't what is growth and what does it look like is an individual perspective, isn't it? Because it's all down to the individual. But if I was to try and categorize it, if that's what I would do. I would categorize it. I split parts up into my life. So if I take my personal life, I got my physical and mental well-being. When I first started Jacobs, I went, right, I need to learn my job. And I shackled myself to the desk for 9 months. I rapped on Fizz, and I went, hang on a second. Fizz keeps physical exercise, keeps me happy, and it keeps me healthy. I left to be a fit and healthy dad, and I don't feel it. So I then kickstarted the Jacobs Fit Plan, and I have now signed up to the competition, which is on Saturday. And I have been training pretty damn hard for this rocks competition. And I have got if I turn up on the day how I know I can, I've got a chance of maybe going to the Worlds. the World Championships, which would be great. And that is a growth perspective from me. And I have tracked my times for it throughout the 5 months, and I've been getting faster, and I've been getting stronger, and I've been getting better, and that is growth for me. But on the other side, you've got your professional side. So growth for me is, are you learning? Because you can sit in a job and you can do your job, but growth doesn't happen unless you're learning. And everyone talks about imposter syndrome, and they talk about it as a negative. But I think it was Stephen Bartlett that had said, if you're in imposter syndrome, you're in an area of growth. It's because you're not stagnant, you're pushing your boundaries, and you're actually trying to learn and put yourself in a new environment where you don't know, and you're not expected to know, but you are growing as a person. So I continually find myself in this area, but I spin it. I don't look at it as an imposter syndrome. I left as a corporal, and the other day I was in calls with 3 stars, which for anybody not military is very, very, very high up. But I'm not nervous because I've proven my place to be here, and I should be here. And then I want to be great at what I do, so I want to grow. And I obviously want to enjoy what I do as well, and that's a part of growth. Is if you're sat there miserable in your job, growth is not going to happen, is it? You need to find something that you're happy with, that you want to excel in, and you will grow in as well. And then a big one, well, I've got 2 more. So home is all about balance for me. That is the most important thing, and if something tips that out of balance, it has to be adjusted. And that's what happened in November when I was going through a really horrible bid in Jacobs, and that's what tipped my balance. And I was like, I'm not growing here, I'm just drowning, I don't like it, I need to go somewhere else. And then the last one is vocation. And that is a job and a passion aligning. And that is where the Gen Dit comes into it. It's not a job because I don't get paid for it. It is just a passion. There is a plan in place of how do I continue and maintain doing what I love doing. And I'm quite good at it. But I can't do it for free anymore, so there is a plan, a very passive plan in place, which will be coming out at the Bristol Event. And that is going to really, really kind of project the Gen Dit into the next level of what I kind of see it doing. So there is a big growth piece in that. And I'm obviously going to plug it just now, but the Gen Dit Bristol Event in 3 weeks' time, actually, is called the Veterans Growth Event. Because again, observations from the last 2 years is there is some certain narratives in the community, and please feel free to message me after this if you don't agree with what I'm about to say, but there is a very strong narrative on PDS mental health around the veteran space, which I acknowledge is there, but I think it's a small percentage that takes up the majority of the veteran name. What I want to do, because I'm not a mental health expert, so I can't comment on that. What I want to do and use my voice and platform is to champion the positive growth of a service person to a veteran professional. So in the Bristol event, we're going to see from service person to service leaver to veteran professional to experienced veteran professional and then veteran business owner. And that's what I really want to champion, is the positive story of these amazing veterans who leave and grow into being something special.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so much of that echoes with Redeployable and so many other people who are of that same mindset. I'm going to keep talking about that, and we're going to get back into that. But just as a small breaker there, we're going to be moving into our live, or I guess the Q&A part of this soon. So Annabelle is, as always, behind the scenes. So if anyone wants to give Annabelle a shout out, please do so. But Annabelle, if we could have our Slido brought up, please. You will all see a little QR code that you can scan. You can ask your questions anonymously if you don't want to do it in the LinkedIn comment section, or feel free to do it in there where we can answer. The team will be on board to answer as well. And anything that we don't get to answer now, or we've not got too long left, we will get answers out on our pages at some point, and I'm sure Chris will be happy to weigh in on in the future as well. So if you want to start scanning that, get some questions over, and use Chris for what he is and for the time that we've got him for. But as we're talking about the Gen Dit Network, and we'll stay on this event that's coming up just while the questions start rolling in. I've attended in the past. Absolutely fantastic events. So much opportunity there. So many great people in one room, in one place to pull from. And I know that this one is even bigger. A lot more kind of, I wouldn't say structure put to it, or maybe that's the right word, or there's just a lot more gone into this. You know,
Yeah.
as the being able to see the network go from what it is to what it is now, it absolutely requires that. So, is there anything about that you specifically want to kind of shout out, talk about, just let everyone know like a key takeaway that they could be looking forward to whilst we're there?
Sure. One of my biggest things is actually I've got some 3 top tips that I would love to share, which would then make it really relevant, if that's okay, mate. So I've right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I've got these 3 tips that I will be saying at the Bristol event as well. So it would make sense for me to do it just now, but moving forwards, whether it be anything beyond the military, because I don't want to just focus on service leavers. My focus is on veterans as well, because once you leave the military, you don't stay in a job forever. You want to move as
Yeah.
well. And the biggest things that has helped me personally is surround yourself with all stars. And when I say all stars, I mean people of value, people that want to help, and people that want to see you do well. There's no point in surrounding yourself with just 8,000 connections on LinkedIn that can add no value to you or your life. Everyone that I have got a personal connection with wants to see me do well, and I do stuff for them, and it swings and roundabouts, mate. That's what's really, really helped me get to where I am and helped me make better informed decisions. Next one is master the 1% improvements, because over 2 years, I don't just do a big chunk of, yes, that's it, done. Every single day, I'm just chipping away at something, chipping away at something. And 2 years later, it's making an impact and it's actually doing some good, but it doesn't happen overnight. So it's just making these 1% improvements consistently to get you where you need to be. And then final one, it is a bit of a shot across the bows, and it is also a very, very valid tip. So effort is rewarded and remembered in equal measures. I put a lot of effort into individuals, keeping relationships, fostering them, doing nice and good things for people. And guess what happens? Months down the line, Chris, I've got this idea. Chris, can I do this for you? And it's investment. I invest my time and effort into people for the long run. And what I am continually seeing, not everyone, but there's a very, very strong message in the environment where a lot of people want something for nothing. They are willing to put in the basic level of effort that is required. And if you put the basic effort in, you will get basic returns. If you go out your way, you will get a better return. It's just like anything. And if I put this into perspective, a long time ago, I am the only gatekeeper of the Gen Dit Network, which has got over 14,000 people in it. I can almost guarantee there would be 1,000 people more, but 6 months ago I made a decision of when I send my copy-paste message of, hi everybody, do you want to join the group and this is what we're doing, etc. It's a copy and paste message, I make it personal to them, and then they send me a thumbs up or an auto-reply thanks, they do not get into the group because that is not the level of professionalism I want to deal with on a daily basis. So take heed of this. I understand that a thumbs up, if you have a relationship with someone and it's finishing a conversation, is fine. A thumbs up in a professional environment to somebody who's trying to help you is not the effort that is required. So these people are now not getting the help that they might need because they didn't put the required effort in. So that's just trying to put a metric on what I mean here by put the effort in, you'll get rewards. Just be lazy, you won't. But yeah, so that brings me into the Bristol event. I have put a lot of effort into this. I have, if we go back to autonomy, I have given taskings to teams and said, you run with it, it's yours. However you want to do it, just keep me in the loop, it's yours to run. This event is going to be a much more matured and refined version of anything that I've done before, and it's really going to have a strong champion, positive, motivating theme to the day. And I can almost guarantee that there'll be someone saying, I really wish I attended this. Because everyone is going to do really good reports of it, because the value on the day is astronomical.
Yeah, yeah. I can absolutely second that. You know, having been there myself, really looking forward to the next one. We're going to be there. It does sound epic. So
Yep.
super exciting times, super exciting stuff. Those insights and those three quick takeaways. We'll get a quick summary at the end to run over them. But so we've got a few questions here. So let's try and rattle through them as quick as we can, because we've not got too long left, but don't want to leave anyone waiting. So.
Yep.
Have you ever doubted your decision to leave the forces, and have you ever got to the point where you've considered rejoining?
This time, no, not at all. Absolutely not. Spin your quick bit. I left in 2012 and then rejoined after 9 months because I had a bit of a shit time on Civvy Street. So I have left and I did rejoin, and it was because I didn't have a Gen Dit network to support me. I didn't have a clue what I wanted to do. I rushed resettlement and I made some really bad decisions with not much information. I was not prepared. Thinking back on it, and I was probably a bit more immature than what I am now. I didn't have the information to make those choices. Just now, I am thriving, don't miss the military at all. I genuinely don't miss anything. And what my life is completely transformed. I've got a bigger house because I've got a bigger salary. I see my family on a daily basis, is which exactly why I left. And I'm achieving what I thought I could in this world rather than being sat on a single man grot in the camp waiting to go on an exercise.
I'd say that's a pretty good summary. For me personally, I think there was an initial point where I first left, and I was a bit like, "Shit, is this what I thought it was going to be?" And
Yeah.
this, because it's all a bit scary, it's a bit daunting, but
And a big
very similar.
a
I think
big
if
a
you,
big one on that, mate, is you need to throw yourself into it. If you come out going, oh, I don't have that safety blanket, oh, I kind of miss this, and you need to throw everything into it. Burn the boats.
yeah, burn the boats, eh? Burn the boats. There we go. Cool. Is it worth sticking out a job you don't enjoy to grow, or should you find your growth elsewhere?
How are you going to grow in a job that you don't like?
That's a
That's
pretty good
that's
response there,
that's
isn't it?
that's,
It's
that's my
yeah.
question. If you can get training out of them, great, get the training. But are you going to implement the learning? Are they going to facilitate the learning that you do? If you
Mhm.
don't like that job, you're not going to be motivated to grow. And if you don't like it, are you really going to be putting in everything into it? The things that you don't like are probably going to hinder you from growing. Me personally, whilst in that job that you don't like, I would utilize the time to work on yourself, to better yourself, to then grow somewhere else. Get to where you want to be to enable you to grow.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree with that. And I think from me, when it says it basically states in there that you are growing. I would look at if you actually are. Just because you're uncomfortable and not enjoying doesn't necessarily mean that you're growing. So maybe weigh that up too. Great. So we've got two more questions here. If
Yep.
anyone does have any more questions, if you put them in the LinkedIn comment section, they will stay there, and I will get to them after. We've gone a little bit over, but I think there's tons of value in this, and so we'll be wrapping up soon. But we'll rattle through these last two questions on the
Yep.
Slido. What is next after project management? This path seems to be being pushed so hard at military leavers.
So I've actually moved away from project management. Yes, it gets pushed. The reason that I initially went into project management after service was I was looking at my skills, I was translating them, I was sitting there going, what is a safe industry to get into? Because when I left, I was like, I don't know what I want to be. I've kind of got the good attributes and skills of a project manager. I'm really good at planning, communication, piecing things together, time management, everything. So all the attributes of a project manager I fell into. So I obviously booked as many project management qualifications as I could, which is one of my biggest regrets. I would have done, in hindsight, I would have done one APM PMQ, which would have covered the lot, and I would have focused on something else. But I came out, I went into project management, and I didn't like project management because this is my personal feelings. Project management is stay in this box. You run that project, you can't come up with ideas, you can't do anything, you're firefighting on a daily basis, you're keeping other things in check. That's fine. That's not me. I've got this creative vision that I want to go out and I want to do other things. And I did personal insights, and one of my mentors was like, Chris, I'm an 80% guy. I like to get something to 80% and hand it on to somebody else. And then I move on to something else. A project manager isn't that. So I moved from project management into sales because I think I can talk. I've got good relationship building. Obviously, I went into the bid management side, which we've touched on, and I didn't like a bit of that. I didn't like the process, the documentation piece, and then I've went into business development, which is more client focused. So each step I've moved away from something that I didn't like, but moved closer to something I do like. And business development is 100% my future. It's taken me 3 turns to get there, but BD is my future.
Great. And our last one then, Chris. How can you align your leadership skills from the military to a civvy role, especially considering that lots of workplaces are now remote?
Um, Difficult one to break down. What my first tip would be, take rank out of it. Nobody cares about rank.
Mhm.
Focus on the people, the attributes, the skills, and the metrics as well, the outcomes of leadership. What is leadership? You've got to ask yourself, how do you see leadership and what do you see good leadership? And then also, how does that help the company that you're going into? Because like you see it on CVs all the time, commanded 100 personnel, and it's like, so what does that actually mean? Whereas like when I was at DST, the Defence School of Transport, I took and trained 2,000 Royal Marines and took the training course from inception through to concept and delivery and put 2,000 people through it. And I've got metrics of that, and that's how I've coached, mentored, led new Marines into being the future fighting force of the Marines. It's like nobody cares if you had 300 people under you. That doesn't prove good leadership. So what you need to think of
Yeah.
is examples of good leadership and how that will improve the civilian company. How is that going to help them? That's all they care about is what are you going to do? How is it going to help me? What time is it going to save and resources and money? And the remote piece is I have been working remotely for 2 years now, but I led a global fitness initiative remotely. I was speaking to people in Hawaii about fitness events. That was leadership. People were coming to me. Somebody
Yeah.
messaged me yesterday. I've left the company and people are still messaging me with updates of how they're getting on. And that's virtual leadership is I made a connection with them and people are now reaching back to me to say, Chris, I've just done this and I've got my fastest park run and stuff because I've had an impact. So you can still have impact in a remote working place.
Yeah, that was actually what I was going to touch on for that. I think initially look at leadership and what that good leadership looks like, and then how you can implement it. But just because it's remote doesn't mean you can't be a good leader. If anything, you've got an opportunity to start a new style of leadership to make something
Uh,
really impressive where it's not happening now. Like, how often are you checking in with people?
yeah.
How are you impacting their daily working life, their personal life? How are you making them feel good, and how are you enabling them to be better at what they're doing? Because
I've
that's
got,
what you should be doing as
I've,
a leader.
I've
So
got,
that's what I
I've
would
got a brilliant example for you, mate. How have I got my fellowship and a leadership award for running the Gen Dit, which is a remote virtual community? Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
just
absolutely.
that's the epitome of that answer of it doesn't matter if you're working remotely, you can still show great leadership because you are out front, you're setting examples, reaching out to people, doing things for the right reason, and that's leadership.
Spot on. Perfect. So we have run a little bit over time there. I think it was absolutely worth it. Again, like a huge thanks from you, Chris. Before I close this off, have you got any closing thoughts, things that you want to say or leave
No,
anyone
no.
with?
Hopefully, this has kind of resonated with people. I am always open to people connecting with me on LinkedIn. If anybody isn't in the gender and they have a military background or a supporting civilian, please feel free to reach out. I want to collaborate with as many people as I can. There is always help out there, and if I can offer advice and guidance, I guarantee I will know someone, and I'm happy signposting at any point.
I'm going to jump on the back of that absolutely as well. So if anyone isn't connected with me and Chris, feel free to connect, shoot out any questions, check out Redeployable, check out the Gen Dit Network, get signed up to the events. If anyone's got any final leaving notes, questions, we'll be able to come back to the live. But again, and final thoughts from me, just a massive thank you to you, Chris, for joining us. Not our first time, hopefully not our last time. We'll be linking up in March for the event. Thank you to everyone for tuning in and being so engaging this time. So thank you all. We'll see you all again soon. Yeah, that's it. Cheers. Goodbye.
Ciao.